Hey howdy, welcome back to my channel. Today, I thought it would be fun to show you guys the top 10 books that I have read so far this year. I started my channel in April, so there was quite a few months at the beginning of the year where I didn't talk about the books that I read on here, and I thought this would be kind of a fun way to talk about some of the ones that were my favorites, and yeah, just to kind of see where we're at for the year. So these aren't in any particular order, these are just the top 10 that I picked. And also series, if it's a series, I counted it as one instead of 2 or 3. So let's get into it. The first book on my top 10 is Grief is the Thing with Feathers by Max Porter. I read this book a few months ago, and I absolutely loved it. It is a book written in verse about grief from the perspective of a crow. I just found this book super interesting. It was super sad. I thought that the verse in it was so beautiful, and I underlined a ton of stuff in it because I thought so much of it was so powerful, and I did indeed cry at the end, which is why I thought it deserved a spot on the top 10. The next book in my top 10 I just talked about last month, and that is The OK Witch by Emma Steinkilner. This is a graphic novel about a little girl named Moth Hush and her discovery that she is a witch, and then her kind of coming into that, her family is witches, and finding out how to use her magic, and also learning her family past at the same time. And this book is so fucking cute. I'm not gonna talk a ton about it because, like I said, I did just talk about it in my July wrap-up. But it is so freaking cute, and the character of Moth Hush and just the way she views the world and the kindness that she has is so darling, and I just loved it. I loved everything about it, and the illustrations were also super adorable as well. We'll just keep on the trend of graphic novels right now. The other graphic novel that I've added to my top 10 is actually a graphic novel series. The other graphic novel that made the list is The Girl from the Other Side, volumes 1 through 3. This is a manga about a little girl who wanders to the woods and accidentally crosses over to the other side, what is called the other side, and everyone in the village believes she is lost, but she's actually been found by a creature on the other side and is being taken care of and has not been transformed. And so it's about their life together and how they live on the other side, and Shiva's adventures as she learns more about this other world that she has entered into. And this book is just so sweet and touching, and the relationship between teacher and Shiva is so genuine and kind. He doesn't treat her like she's a child, he treats her just like she's another human being, and it is just absolutely stunning. I really love it, and I am so excited to read the other ones. I haven't bought them yet, but when I do, I'm gonna be picking them up immediately. The next book on the list of my top 10 is Sin Eater by Megan Campisi. I talked about this one just a couple months ago as well. This book is about a girl who is sentenced to become a sin eater after she is arrested for stealing a loaf of bread. Being the sin eater means that she has to go around to everyone's bedsides and hear their sins and eat the food of their sins at their deathbed. She has to eat the foods that represent whatever sins they committed, and that therefore absolves them from their sins and passes them on to her. At the same time, she finds out that there is something going on in the castle, and she is determined to figure out what it is and solve the mystery of why people keep dying in the castle, and it is just so good. It's such a short book, but it packs such a punch in such a small amount of time. The main character is absolutely brilliant. She is able to develop herself as time goes on, and the way she views religion, the way she views herself, the way she views her role as a sin eater, and I just found the whole book fascinating, and the whole mystery aspect was also great. I definitely would recommend this. The next book that made my top 10 is not a surprise to anybody. It's The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I talked about this one at the very beginning when I first started making videos. This book is so good. It is so pretentious. The characters are horrible. The plot is insane, and it is so well written, and I just loved everything about it. I ate it up. It's like a 500-page book, and I read it in like 3 days because I thought it was so freaking good. Definitely want to pick up more of Donna Tartt's work in the future. If you don't know what The Secret History is about, then you should get off BookTube, because honestly, everyone has described it at this point. I don't need to describe it. It is great. The next book that made the list is also probably one of my newest favorite authors for the year that I found, and that is The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. This book is about exactly what it sounds like. It's about an invisible man, a man who turns himself invisible and is then a pariah of the community, and he walks around trying to steal from people and live his life as an invisible man. I loved this book. It's really short, but I thought it was so amusing, and the character of the invisible man is so strong. I just loved the idea that, like, yeah, of course, if you accidentally turned yourself invisible, you'd be a dick about it. You'd be upset about it. You wouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna be rational and cool about this. You'd be angry, and you'd be confused, and you'd be violent, and I just absolutely loved that character. And that the Invisible Man was just a huge fucking dick. I loved it. This book made me want to read so much more of H.G. Wells' work, and I definitely will be picking up some, hopefully in the next couple of months. The other book that's on my top 10, that it's the only book on my top 10 that I don't own, and that is Yellowbird by Sierra Crane Murdoch. I talked about this one when I first started making videos as well. This is a true crime book about a crime that happens up in North Dakota on the oil rig. And this book was fascinating. This book was so much more than a true crime book. It was also an analysis of the way Indian reservations are led, what kind of lives the people on the Indian reservations are living, and it was just absolutely fascinating. And it was also the story of this woman and how she solved this crime over time. And it was just so brilliant. I really thought it was amazing. It was probably my favorite true crime book that I read this year for sure. And Sierra Crane Murdoch is a great writer, and I really hope she does more stuff because she's a journalist and this is her first book, and I really hope she continues writing books because I thought it was just so good. The other book I read that's on my top 10 is Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. This book is about a female detective named Brittany Devine as she goes on a journey to track down this mermaid that's been stolen, and this book is so good. The imagery is amazing, the characters are amazing, and I just absolutely fell in love with everything about it. I feel like that's what I keep saying about every book, is that the characters were amazing and the imagery was amazing, because that's true of all these books. That's why I loved them, obviously. But this one was really good. I loved the main character, Brittany Devine. I think she was a great main character with great compassion in her, and also very smart. And I also love that she smokes questionable substances, because that's like me. Next book that made my top 10 is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This is my first Shirley Jackson book I've ever read, and I absolutely loved it. This book is about a group of people that are spending the summer in this house that is supposed to be haunted, called Hill House, hence the name, The Haunting of Hill House. It is haunted, and some crazy stuff starts to happen. I loved this book because I loved the unreliableness of the main character, and I loved that you never really know from one second to the next where her mind is or what's really going on. You just know her perspective and what she's thinking in the moment, and it's very all over the place because she doesn't even really know what she's thinking in the moment. And so I loved that about it, and I just loved the eeriness in general. And then the last book that is on my top 10 is one of the first couple of books that I read this year. It's a series, and that is Vicious and Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. These books were so good. I knew I was gonna love them because I love V.E. Schwab. Vicious was the first book that I read this year, and I gave it 5 stars, so I started off the year really strong. I liked Vicious more than I liked Vengeful, but I still liked them both a lot. Vicious and Vengeful are part of the Villains series, which is about a man named Victor who has given himself powers and becomes a villain, and then he runs into some other people with powers along the way, and their stories kind of unfold from there. And it is so good. So good. I'm so excited for the new one of these to come out, and I hope it comes out soon. And that's it. Those are my top 10 books that I've read so far this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, you could give it a like. If you wanted to subscribe, you could do that too. If you don't want to do any of that, you can also do that. I really don't care. I will see you all next time in my next video. Bye!